Hello and welcome. Evolving from its earliest form, education has grown to become a vital tool in Africa, with digital technology changing the way people learn, work and socialize. Despite progress in recent years, large inequalities remain, especially in parts of the continent where literacy rates are still below 30%, and that's correct. Well, this is Africa This Week, and I'm your guide, Fadishola Shotingwa. We start off the day with earlier in the week. Welcome aboard. On Monday, Gabon announced a ban on opposition leaders, including the former top African Union official Jean Ping, from leaving the country in what is said to have been a temporary administrative measure. Ping, a 74-year-old career diplomat, was narrowly defeated by incumbent Ali Bongo in Gabon's August presidential election and accused the administration of electoral fraud. A number of demonstrations have been held in support of Ping in cities around the country, leading to numerous arrests and clashes with police in the capital and the seaport of Port Gentil. On August the 18th, Ping called on the Gabonese to rise up as one to solemnly mark, supposedly, his rise to power. The directive also affected former Prime Minister Casimir Oye-Mba, who was scheduled to leave for France last Friday. And it was in the news on Tuesday that the Kenyan opposition leader Raila Odinga and his coalition will not participate in the rerun for a presidential election proposed for October the 17th, unless it is given legal and constitutional guarantees. Odinga's conditions include the removal of some officials at the election board. He wants criminal investigations to be opened against them. Kenya's election board says it will hold new elections on October the 17th, but Odinga said he wants elections held on October the 24th or the 31st instead.
Not do a mistake twice and expect to get different results. We know exactly what transpired in these last elections. We know what the IEBC did. And we know that if we were to go back, there will be no different results. And that's why we have said that there will be no elections on the 17th of October until some of the conditions which you have spelled out in the statement are met by the IEBC. You have written a letter also to the IEBC stating out clearly what we have also stated in the statement, which we are going to give you right now.
And it was cheery news on Wednesday when reports that Nigeria has exited the recession status broke out. But analysts feel the country should not rejoice just yet.
The Nigerian economy grew by 0.5% year-on-year in the second quarter of 2017. This shows it has recovered from recession after a persistent decline for 5 consecutive quarters.
We are not out of the woods yet. The recovery is obviously very fragile, and we need to make sure that all the players are playing their part for this to be sustainable and for that growth to translate to poverty reduction and also to employment.
The latest growth seen is higher than that of the same quarter in 2016. This saw aggregate gross domestic product rise higher by 14.6% year-on-year. Economic watchers say the country should build on this development for the growth to be felt in real terms by the people.
Diversification. This is an opportunity because you have a robust plan for diversification. You have what I called macroeconomic policy convergence, where you have alignment between policy holders, you have coordination, and then they are beginning to work together. This dysfunctionality was what has described Nigeria for many years, but now we are working together. What you now need to do is to release the fund, which the National Assembly is holding when they delay the budget, and then for government to up the spend.
What we allow harvesting of crops, what we allow production in agri, in terms of irrigation and all those kind of things, have to be put in place. What we allow factories not to close down in terms of sustainability of a very good exchange policy and monetary policy have to be put in place. Once the lead sector of the economy, that's the productive sector of the economy, are doing fine, then we are not going back to recession. And then the economy will try to be adjusting, and then we'll come out of it finally, and then we shall be on part of growth again.
The Nigerian government is advised to intensify efforts at making its economic recovery and growth plan succeed, as it plays a critical role in advancing growth.
When you scrutinize the plan, you'll find that there are more work to be done on the plan. They have to elaborate the performance. There are 6 pillars. Of course, they included the social inclusion. There are 6 pillars and 60 policy action areas. You need to have performance indicators. They should publish the performance indicators. And 2, the National Planning Commission should go on the fast lane with stakeholders and start monitoring and evaluation, and start publishing quarterly the monitoring and evaluation report. Until you have that published, you cannot name and shame MDAs that are not doing much. So that is really the loose end that will be tightened up to bring acceleration to the recovery that we are having right now.
The Nigerian economy entered into recession in 2016. Data from the Statistics Bureau indicates the manufacturing, oil, trade and agriculture sectors helped in putting the economy back on a path of positive growth. The International Monetary Fund had earlier predicted the country would exit recession this year. Lara Folayo, TVC News, Abuja.
On Thursday, there was anger in Tanzania after opposition lawmaker Tundu Lissu, a fierce critic of President John Magufuli's government, was shot at his residence in the administrative capital, Dodoma. According to a release from his party, Lissu suffered multiple gunshot wounds and is being treated at the main public hospital in Dodoma. Lissu has had several run-ins with the government, having been previously arrested by police on several occasions and charged with incitement. In July, he was again arrested, but later released after calling President Magufuli a dictator. The motive of the shooting is unclear. And still on Thursday, the internet access remained blocked in Togo as authorities continue the clampdown on opponents of President Faure Gnassingbé, who continue their demand for an end to the family's 50-year rule. Protesters began marching from the opposition stronghold of Bay towards a meeting in central Lomé, with police officers walking calmly beside them. The scale of this week's protests, which the opposition says were attended by hundreds of thousands of people, represent the biggest challenge to Gnassingbe's rule since the aftermath of his ascension to power in 2005. In the past, security forces had violently suppressed protests, killing at least 2 people during an opposition march in August and hundreds after a contested election in 2005. On Friday, Africa joined the rest of the world in marking the 51st UNESCO International Literacy Day with the theme Literacy in a Digital World.
Literacy is understood by many as the ability to read, write, and demonstrate arithmetic skills. It has been expanded to include the ability to use language, numbers, images, computers, and other basic means to understand, communicate, gain useful knowledge, and use the dominant symbols systems of a culture. When TVC visited the National Library of Nigeria, there were indeed activities by the managers to commemorate the day. But findings showed that there were only a few people reading the books here, with most of the books covered up in dust. In an interview with TVC News, one of the librarians said the literacy level in the country can't improve if citizens fail to use libraries.
Libraries is where we have, or we can call libraries an archive of knowledge, where we have the information about what is going on in the country, information about students' education. But when we look at it, libraries have been abandoned. Students only read once they have exams. And once they finish the exams, that's all. Without library, I don't think there's any improvement. So people that come to the library, they find themselves in a new world.
According to a research conducted by UNESCO, digital technologies are fundamentally changing the way people live, work, learn, and socialize everywhere. But those who lack access to digital technologies and the knowledge, skills, and competencies required to navigate them can end up marginalized in increasing digital societies.
In the African world, the literacy has been on decline. People are not reading. So that is why we even did some exhibition, to remind people of the importance of literacy, and also to, create awareness so that our readers will know what is happening. I believe the theme is apt. It's supposed they did it, to align with what is happening in the society now. Now through the internet, mobile phones, and all whatnot is fast moving in technology. Almost everybody is aligned to it.
The International Literacy Day reflects on the various challenges preventing the promotion of literacy as an integral part of lifelong learning within and beyond the 2030 education agenda. Sharon Ijason, TVC News, Lagos.
And with that, we have come to the end of Earlier in the Week. Up next is Digging Deep, and that is after the break. To stay with us. Welcome back to Africa This Week. Well, it is now that time of the weekend when typical social life in Africa often feature clear skies in the city, partygoers on the move, and a group of friends relaxing outdoor, probably debating survival and hardship over a few bottles of alcohol. Now, following months of economic downturn, Africa's two biggest economies recently slipped out of recession at the same time, for the first time in modern history. Now, joining me on Africa This Week via Skype to dig deep is Nnaemeka Obiareri, a financial analyst and investment banker based in Nigeria. Thank you for joining me. Welcome to the program. Well, before we go into all the technicalities of going out of recession, how did two of Africa's largest economy get to this point of being in recession in the first place?
Basically, for the South African economy, I won't say much about it because one of the reasons that they gave was the issue of drought in South Africa, the early drought that they witnessed towards the end of the last quarter, and which affected most of their agricultural exports, especially the areas of horticulture and cereal. And if you observed it, they were in recession in December, in the last quarter of last year and the first quarter of this year, and they just snapped out of it. And you will see that their recovery is a very robust one, from contraction to 2.5%, very robust. And if you look at the sectoral allocations, the industry that they performed so well in agriculture ramped up by about 33.6%, electricity 8.8%, mining 3.9%, even finance 2.5%, even the area of transportation and manufacturing, which is a robust growth because it involves most of the physical areas outside the monetary areas. It's all encompassing. On the issue of Nigeria, we all know how we slipped into recession. We have been in recession for the last 5 quarters, starting from the first quarter of 2016. It's only those who are not honest that will tell you. Yes, we knew that at the advent of this new government, oil prices actually depleted, but that was not why we ran into the recession. The government did not start right. Remember that it took them 6 months to put in place a cabinet. And again, the body language and activities of the commander-in-chief did not help matters too. Remember that prior to the time to May 2015, we had over 5 years of relative peace. Yar'Adua was able to sort out the issue of restiveness in Niger Delta by word of amnesty and other intervention programs. Though they were elixirs, but it sustained output in that region. Nigeria is a monopoly economy. Crude oil is our mainstay. But when the government came in, the new government came into being, they first of all started by not putting in place a cabinet. The second thing is that they started talking tough, cancelled, suspended the amnesty programs, and began unnecessary bullying of opposition. And of course, the militants went into their trenches. By March, April 2016, they started bombing our oil facilities. output came down from almost a height of 2 million barrels per day to about 1.2 million barrels per day. Coupled with the depletion of our foreign reserve to sustain and manage the foreign exchange reserve that the central bank was managing arbitrarily without first of all looking at what the economic indices are. So all these things contributed to us going into recession.
Indeed.
Fortunately and thankfully, the monetary policy measure Central Bank of Nigeria over the last 6 months and 1 year has been getting it right. I must commend Godwin Emefiele and his team at the Central Bank of Nigeria. They've taken loads of creative, disingenuous steps to ensure foreign exchange stability, which is the main reason, because once there is foreign exchange instability, once there is instability in that market, because we are an import-dependent economy, it affects every ecosystem in the industry, in the economy. Now, a lot needs to be done. We have, on the part of Nigeria, after 5 consecutive quarters of recession, we have exited it, a bit epileptically, because it's not as robust as of South Africa. Like the governor of Central Bank warned last 2 weeks, those of them who are on the physical side must do a lot scientifically to ensure that we do not slip back into recession. It's not enough for the monetary policy managers to continue to be saddled with the responsibility of holding up this economy. We must do a lot on the physical side. If not, we will slip back.
Emeka, truly now, tell us the peculiarities and the similarities between the Nigerian and the South African economies as they limp out of recession.
To be honest with you, if you look at the South African economy and that of Nigeria, demographically, there is no way we wouldn't have been at least 2 times bigger than the South African economy. We are a 180 million population economy. We have a land mass that's almost ×3 that of South Africa. We have very vibrant, youthful, and capable human resources. Over 70 million Nigerians who are willing, who are capable, who are ready to work. The only difference between us and South African economy is the issue of policy formulation and implementation. Now, I will give you a typical example. South African economy is diversified. Yes, South Africa is a resource-rich economy. They have gold, they have coal, they have water mineral resources. But aside from that, they've also managed to grow the other physical real sector sides of their economy. If you look at the agri growth, it started 3.6%. Ours is just 3%. Let me give you an example. South Africa is not as vast as Nigeria. But in the area of agriculture, South Africa currently exports about 100,000 metric tons of beef. But in Nigeria, we have herdsmen who have refused over the last 20 years to go global, to go digital, to do what others are doing in South Africa. Most of the South African beef exports are halal compliant. They send them to the Middle Eastern economies, to Saudi Arabia, to Bahrain, to Kuwait. But here in Nigeria, we have herdsmen who in 21st century are still looking for grazing paths, are still looking for, doing things that are still very analog, rather than setting up branches in all the 774 local government areas of Nigeria to grow that sector. On the issue of electricity, we are still battling with 3,000 megawatts. South Africa is currently producing 45,000 megawatts. And most of South African power is powered by the feedstock coal. Compare the Nigerian coal with South African coal. The Nigerian coal is better. It's low sulfur surface coal, unlike South African coal that you have to tunnel deep down. They grew their electricity over the last quarter by 8.8%. Ours over the last 5 years have been at the same 3,000 megawatts. Why have we not, over these past years, taken scientific steps to reform both the generation, transmission, and the distribution grid? A lot of things need to be done in that area. Indeed. The pricing mechanism is very poor. The gas pricing mechanism is very poor. The transmission network need to be concentrated and unbundled into 6 regions. This central transmission network we have is not helping us. The federal government of Nigeria on its own part must take steps to pay down what they owe to the DISCOs and the GENCOs. Currently, they owe them over 450 billion naira. I wonder how you will privatize the national power assets, and you are still owing the private sector operators. Where would they get money to revamp the place and grow it? As a matter of advice, if they don't have money, they can create 10-year debt instrument or 5-year debt instrument.
Now, Emeka,
they will issue. Yes, go ahead.
Talking about scientific steps now, going by what's on ground in terms of policy, how sustainable is our recovery from this recession? How do we sustain
Honestly
it?
speaking, I have my fears. I will tell you this. In over 5 months ago, to be precise, the federal government of Nigeria launched a 149-page document, which they tagged the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. That 149-page document articulated clearly 3-year growth plan, 3-year recovery and growth plan, covering all the different sectors of the economy. I will take two, for instance. In that particular sector, in one of the sectors, housing, we said robustly that we want to grow the housing by 2 million housing units over the next 2 years, over the next 3 years. Conservatively, it will take about 15 trillion naira to grow 2 million houses. As I'm talking to you now, as we are discussing now, we are here to understand what the Federal Ministry of Housing, what the Federal Mortgage Bank, and what all the different stakeholders are doing in terms of practical realities, in terms of the house, the whens, and what resources that will be required to grow that sector by that number. The other issue is the issue of rail transportation. Are you aware that South African rail system is almost 85% of the whole rail network in Africa? South African rail network is the narrow gauge system, the same system that we have in Nigeria, one of the most robust and developed rail network. Here in Nigeria, we have a landmass of over 938,000 square kilometers, but we have rail coverage of just about 3,000 kilometers. What are we doing? Rather than going to go and borrow $11 billion to do rail network under the moribund 1955 Railway Act, what stopped the federal government of Nigeria from adopting the same best practices in South Africa, in the UK, by way of concessioning those rail networks? Currently, GE has accepted to take the existing rail network for about $2 billion. What stopped the federal government of Nigeria working with all the stakeholders, all the state governors, each of them setting up special intervention networks and corporations in their states?
Naimeka, this is so much information to take in. I will have to cut you in now and ask my very last question, because we seem to be running out of time now. What role do you think politics continues to play in the economic stability in Nigeria as well as South Africa?
Yes. One of the major hindrance, the major impediment to our growth is the quasi-unitary system of government that we are still running. If you go back to history, the period that Nigeria recorded some of its best growth level was between 1960 and 1966. As at this period, our founding fathers, Obafemi Awolowo, Nnamdi Azikiwe, and Ahmadu Bello, they gave us a constitutional framework, a fiscal framework, a governance framework, a resource control framework that enabled each of the constituent units to grow at their level, each at their own level. There was competition then, there were competitions then. Today, what we are practicing is a quasi-unitary system of government, a sharing system of government that does not condone excellence and productivity. We must go back to restructuring this country. Until we restructure Nigeria, we will never, ever, ever, maximize our latent potentials.
And again,
we must go back to 1963 constitutional framework to restructure Nigeria, introduce resource control, fiscal federalism. That's the only way we can get out of this quagmire.
Naimeka Obiareri, financial encyclopedia in my terms, an investment banker in Nigeria. Thank you for your time on Africa This Week. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Well, with issues like corruption, policy lapses and abuse of public office urgently waiting to be addressed, recent economic developments in Nigeria and South Africa are quite commendable, but should not become another reason for complacency. Until coming out of recession translates into meaningful improvement in the lives of the people, bright prospects will continue to be marred by slow recovery, and statistics would fail to match reality. I have been your guide, Fadishola Shotingwa. Many thanks for watching, and bye for now.